Hi, this is Kim Barber with our Million Dollar Agent Blueprint podcast, and I'm very excited to kick off our first podcast today with a friend, an agent, a rock star, an influencer. So Michelle Rose is here with us. She is an EXP agent in the Virginia kind of Prince William County area and licensed in Maryland, Virginia, and DC, which if you can hold 3 licenses, then obviously you're a rock star. So I love Michelle and her story that she's going to talk about today. When I first met her, she was in the corporate, space, and then she moved into real estate. And now she's like an Instagram influencer. She's crushing it. She just had her baby, so she has that whole story with her husband. And really, if you want to know about how to move and transition and how to create and become an influencer and get business from that, then I want you to stay here and check out the conversation that we're going to have and go on this journey together with us. So, Michelle Rose, give us a quick hi. So,
Hey, yes. Hey,
yes,
Kim. Thanks for having me on here. This is awesome.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, like I was just sharing, there's so many agents that we know this, right? That there's so many agents like myself that leave a corporate position for various reasons and they want to go into real estate. That journey is a difficult decision. It's a financial decision. It's a new career. Do you mind to share a little bit with our listeners to maybe first, like, how did you decide to go into real estate?
Yeah, so that's a very big mechanical engineering degree. And so I was working at an electrical company, and I was doing electrical engineering design. So I was doing that for like almost 10 years. And during that time, I had gotten my license. So I had my full-time job, and then I was working part-time as a real estate agent. And I always wondered, like, okay, how are full-time agents doing this without 2 jobs? Because that was my biggest fear was, having that consistent paycheck. Like when you have a 9 to 5, you have that consistent paycheck no matter what, no matter how much little or how much of a lot of work that you're doing. But when it comes to, being an entrepreneur, having a business, and basically being a real estate agent, you get in what you put out. So what I ended up doing was kind of made a plan. I planned it out. I saved a lot because I knew that there may be some times where I'm going to go for a month or two, maybe more, of no paycheck. So I wanted to make sure that financially I was okay for a while, and I still wanted to work hard. So I treated real estate as like my second full time job. So I had 2 full time jobs: my day job and then my night job, if you will, with real estate. And so once real estate started picking up, just as much in terms of income wise, with my full time job, that's when I said, you know what, let me set a date to kind of leave my current job to do real estate full time. And I had set my date. I had been saving like crazy, and I ended up just taking the leap. So I still ended up working, once I had the more time, right? Because now I did not have my full-time job anymore. Now I had real estate as full-time. I had more time to work, not only work harder, but work smarter so I can continue on with my business. That's kind of like how I started and transitioned, from being an electrical engineer to real estate. So,
Yeah. And you brought up some very important things that I know that reminded me of myself that I know a lot of agents have to think about is that income. People are like, should I
mhm,
go into real estate? And I'm like, to your point, you have to make sure you have money, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Being
definitely
100% commission is scary. And
terrifying.
yeah, yeah. So how did you, just real quick to kind of, uh, when you went from part-time to full-time, you talked
Hmm.
about mapping out the money, setting a date, which I love that.
Hmm.
And how did you like maybe organize your schedule or decide on what leads to go after in that part? Because like, how did you decide to do that?
Yeah, so I treated real estate like it was my 9 to 5. That's to me and what I thought how you can be able to be successful. Because a lot of times the fun part about being in real estate is you have the freedom of how you want to work. But then that's also the worst part too. Like you have the freedom. So today you can feel like working or not feel like working. You have no boss above you. And
Mhm.
so I said, you know what? If I can just treat my real estate as like it's a 9 to 5, like in the morning, I wake up 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, I prepare for the day, 8 o'clock, I start my calls from 8 to 10, kind of have a schedule and stick to it. That's what I ended up doing. It's the same thing when you work 9 to 5. You wake up 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock to get ready, go to work, you drive at 7, get there at 8, and then you work until 5 or 4, same thing, right? So that is what kind of helped me. So I ended up creating a schedule and doing my best to stick to it, and also figured out how much money I wanted to make, because that's one of the benefits of working in real estate, that you can make an infinite amount of money. Of course, you got to make sure you work smarter if you're trying to make more money. In the beginning, you work hard, right? And then you try to figure out ways to leverage, and that leveraging part is where you start to work smarter, and then you know, when the income gets better. So figured out how much I wanted to make, which during that part, how much I want to make. Okay, how much do I need to make? What are my bills? What are my things that I need to pay for, groceries, gas, or what have you? And then that extra amount, that's that's where the potential is, right? That's where the profit is. And so kind of add that extra cushion, so that way when you reach your goal of, let's say, $100,000 a year, even though you need 50,000 for your bills, right? There's an extra 50,000 that you can keep, right? Now your goal is 100,000, no less. You don't want it to be 50, you want it to be 100, right? So that way when you hit 100, not only are you comfortable with paying your bills, but you're also comfortable with getting that money and doing whatever you want. So just what you try to stick to. So
Right. Yeah. And so I love that, because you have, the smarts, if that's the right word to say, to map out your money, because you already had a very good job that was paying you, right?
Plus, like, with having an engineering background, I have an analytical mind, like, so I numbers is all that I
Okay.
care about.
Okay. All right. So bottom line is important. When I was going into real estate, and some people know my story and some people don't, but being a single mom and having worked in corporate like yourself, I was already making really good money, and you were the same, right? You already had,
Yep.
and then the insurance
Yeah.
and, you know, consistency on, like, if something happened, or vacations, paid vacation. When you go on your own, you're 100% commission. You also
Yeah.
have to find out insurance. And so I was able to flip a house like in a day to fund mine. But I was like, oh my gosh, to your point,
Oh, nice.
how many months can you go and pay your bills and not need that thing? So, but you were doing part-time real estate, and so you had a rhythm going and an income before then you went full time. So you kind of had a touch for, you weren't like going in cold to try to make your first deal. You already had business and income at the same time. So I was just kind of sharing the same collaboration about, you were working with real estate, meaning you were working full time, and then you were getting experience of real estate part time. So when you went in, you weren't like cold turkey, now I'm ready, set, go. You had some experience, which I love that, because that's what I recommend to people is, you have to have that big income, or you have to have a deal staged, which is a little bit challenging to do. I was fortunate that my mom was like, hey, I'm going to wait until you get your license. And on day 2, I wrote a contract. But otherwise, I think it's important for people to realize you need to have at least how many months would you say, Michelle? Like 3,
I think
4?
I had like, well, I doubled it. I had like 6.
Okay.
So I was super conservative.
Yeah.
And what was funny was that when I left to go full time, I had a couple contracts in place already. But even like soon after, because I had left like around like September, October, and then that following January would be my first full year full time. And during, I think probably like the latter half of the year, I think when real estate started to slow down a little bit, there had been a couple months where I was not having any closings. And of course, I was having I was having closings the first half of the year, and so like that kind of helped me, because again, my conservative mind, I was still saving and stuff, so I was still afloat. But there had been some times where it was a couple of months, or I think the longest was like 3 months, that I did not get any closings, and or a paycheck, if you will. But I was okay because I had
Because you
enough.
had it.
Right. But then that's the thing, like, I looked back and I'm like, okay, well, what is it? Why is it that I had 3 months of no closings? Because closings happen every day.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I always think like that. Like, okay, why is it that I don't have a closing? There has to be a reason. People are buying houses and selling houses every day. What am I doing that I where I can be able to reflect and kind of change up my plans, my goals to make sure that I have something consistent, some type of closing every month. Whether it was lead generating, following up, or things like that, I needed to kind of reflect and see what I need to do to make changes. You
Yeah.
can do it. You can have closings every month. So
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. So I know that now, I've already kind of shared that you're an Instagram influencer. And I just want to, for those of you that are listening that are wanting to go down this path, I feel like sometimes people can jump right into social media and that's their main lead source. Was
mhm,
that your first lead source, or how did you go? Like, what were you doing to get your
mhm.
business first? And then how did you transition?
Yeah, so I did the old school methods. I did the door knocking, I did the cold
Door
calling.
knocking. Okay.
Yes, I door knocked hundreds of doors.
Did
That
you
was one of the
really?
first thing. Yes, I did. That was one of the first things that I did as a real estate agent. I This is where the schedule came in. So I would work my job, my day job. I would get off. I worked from like 5:30 to 3. That was my day job. Got home at like 4, and then from like 5 to 7, I would go door knocking in my neighborhood.
Wow.
And so I
You're
did that.
brave.
Yeah, very brave. And this is way pre-COVID, so this is year before. So I did that about 2 hours a day, maybe 3 to 4 times a week, right?
Wow.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I was terrified, I was very nervous and everything, but it always surprised me how people answered the doors. And,
Okay.
not everybody was nice, of course. I've had people cuss me out, I've had people yell at me
Ugh.
and everything, but I've also had people that are like, "Oh my gosh, I'm ready to sell." And I'm
Really?
like, yes, I've had that. And I've also had people say, I'm not ready, but here's my information. So it's very interesting. People are very curious. And I think that's why cold calling, or you get those scam calls, I hate them, but they work
Okay.
because people still answer. People still answer door, people still answer phone calls from people that they don't know. So
Okay.
it works.
So
But
door
yeah,
knocking was a big one for you. I love
yes,
that.
door knocking. And then when it got cold, I wasn't out there when it was raining. I wasn't out there when it was snowing. I wasn't out there, except for one time. I was in the middle of a blizzard. I don't know what was. That was crazy. But that time I was door knocking expireds only. So I was driving around, dropping off
Oh.
my expired package and all that. But that's another story. So yeah,
No,
I
that's a great story. People
yeah.
are like,
Well,
should I do
well,
that? Should I not? Does it work?
Yes, what's funny is that because what I ended up doing, like high level, I would look and see what properties expired, and then I would check to see which ones have immediately gone back on the market or which ones are still expired, and I would create my listing package or my expired package for how many it was, and I would do it in a certain location because you can't drive all over the place.
Right.
It takes a lot of time to drive to get to the house because it's not like these houses are next door to each other and you can
Right.
just
That's a good
drop
point.
off your packages. Yeah, so it took a lot of
Traffic.
time. But I think the reason why I particularly went that snowy day, um, I think, I don't know, for some reason, I think I had called them before, I believe, and they sounded like they need to sell. But I told myself if I just got in front of them, I would have gotten the listing.
Okay.
And so, and this was just a couple of them, like I think it was like 3 of them. And so I said, let me just do it. Let me just do it. I just want to take the chance. And it was kind of dangerous to be out in the snow and things like that. So the funny thing is, the first one that I went to, I dropped off my listing package. They answered the door, and it ended up being one of my former coworkers
Really?
that I had worked with in the
Oh my
same
God.
office. Yes.
Wow.
It was very funny because she was retiring. Her and her husband were moving down south and stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot her name, but
Wow.
she was surprised and she was like, oh my goodness, this is a house real estate. And so we kind of caught up a little bit. I got the listing and helped them sell and things like
I
that.
hope you
So
did.
yeah. So that was a pretty funny story. But yeah, the cold calling was the other thing that I did when it did get cold, or I just didn't feel like going outside. And the expireds and the for sale by owners were who I called.
Call.
So,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, you're giving me some flashbacks that a couple different flashbacks. One, I'm like, should I say this or should I not? But you know me, I'm gonna say it anyway. But one of the things when I first started, like you, I first 4 years, like I was on the phone calling expireds, you know, and that was in 2004 when everything was like, you know,
Mm,
selling so fast, selling so fast. And I think even in this market, maybe people are still feeling that way, depending on what state you're in. Us being in Virginia, the market is still good. If you go down
yep.
to Florida, like I've been, I'm like, wow, if you're in Florida, there are so many expireds that you could go after. But nevertheless, it was a great lead source for sale by owners, you know, good point, get
Yep.
a knock on the door. And then I remember when we first met, it was actually at an event where I was like, I think it was like double your income with your sphere, double your sphere, or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And then we actually ran into each other. I think it was after that. We were both going after an expired sale, like in Northern
I
Virginia,
think
you
so
know, and
too. Yeah,
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 remember
yeah.
that?
Yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
just remember that. So, so then so then basically, okay, so you were going after expires. You know, the other thing is that those people want to sell right away. You know, they already tried to
Yeah.
sell. They already went after the for sale by owners. So that's really smart. And then you started to transition, and I watched your transition from being a part-time agent to full-time. We obviously
Mhm.
you were at Keller Williams or
Yep.
something, and then you
Yep.
came to EXP, and we've been working together there, which I love.
Yep.
And you know, and then doing a lot of growth with that. You know, I remember we talk, and you're like, "How do I sell this $4 million listing?" I'm like, "You can do it. You can do it. Go after them."
And you know what's funny? That was an expired listing. That
Yep.
was an expired listing. I had
Was it?
called. And the funny thing is, like back then I had a fear of, oh my God, I shouldn't call these $1 million listings because they probably already have an agent in mind or they're gonna be harder to convert and things like that. I didn't know that was a $4 million listing that I was calling. Because I saw it was expired. I called, I said, hey, you know, how soon are you looking to interview agents for the job of getting it sold, and had a conversation, and he said, can you meet today? And I was like, yeah, sure, you know, in my professional, because you're so used to hearing no's. When you finally hear someone said that they're ready, yeah, so I said, yeah, sure, definitely. And I looked at my calendar. I was like, you know, would 11 o'clock work? And he said, sure. I said, you know, what's your address? I was confirming the address. And um, I think what I had said, because I was trying to do like my preliminary homework, I have like certain questions I like to ask so I can be more prepared for the listing. I said, you know, how much do you think you would like to sell your house for? So that way I have an idea of how realistic they are, and I can have the right conversation and be prepared when I meet them on how to talk to them about either coming down or, hey, you know, maybe we can go a little more, or I think you're right at the money. And he said, "Oh yeah, you know, maybe like 4.2 or something." I said, 4.2. Oh, okay, 4.2. So, and then when I got off the
Commission
phone, I was like, "Oh my God,"
calculation.
like, yeah. So I was like, "Oh my God, this is a luxury listing." I would have never called if I knew what price range it was. But then I realized the conversation is always going to be the same, whether it's
Okay.
a four
Yeah.
million dollar listing, a $200,000 home. Like, does the person need to sell? Are they motivated to sell? Do they have to sell? You know, all those type of things. And if that's the case, then you know what you're doing, Michelle. You've been doing this for a couple of years already, you
That's right.
know. So I went there. I spoke with him, and he, you know, the objection handlers are very, they come at you all the time. So back then I was role playing, so I knew how to take. I knew how to answer certain questions like, okay, well, what can you do differently that the other agent couldn't do, or you know, all those type of things. And he asked those questions, and I answered confidently, because that's the other thing.
Right.
You have to be confident, even if you don't know. You know what? That's a great question. I'll get right back to you. Instead of saying, well, I don't know. Like, I think I'll get back to you. Like, you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
I
Your
answered
tone,
how I,
quick response.
yep, yep. So I answered his objections, and he said, all right, I'm willing to let's sign the paperwork. And I had the paperwork already, and I left there. I was
Woohoo.
like, nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that we talked about that. And I'm trying to remember if it was, if we talked before the appointment. I know it was like during
Oh, we
some,
talked before the appointment because I had called you because I was I was so nervous. So yes, I do remember calling you right before. I think it was we probably talked for like a good couple of minutes, and then I talked to you afterwards to tell you how it went. So yes, I did
yes.
talk to you.
I was like, high five, high five. So
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean? You were prepared. I love it. It's a, great story. So then you moved away. I don't know if you abandoned those sources, but you went over and started deciding you became you are an Instagram influencer. You have over 25,000 followers on Instagram, so you started out like a lot of people traditional, like some of us, you know what I mean? We went
Yeah.
traditional, it was consistent income, it's smart, you need the money now. And then
Yes.
you went over what made you decide like to pick that platform to focus on Instagram. Can you share about that?
Yes. So I knew like it's necessary nowadays, it's a necessary evil where you have to have some type of online presence. It doesn't matter if you have a Yelp page, if you have a Facebook page, if you have a Google page, Instagram, social media, whatever, you need to have some type of online presence because people are going to look you up. And I knew when I looked up myself, there really wasn't much of me on there. And with social media, it's great because you get to showcase your personality, you get to showcase who you are, you get to showcase your expertise, you get to showcase how you want to showcase to people
Mhm.
who don't know you yet, they don't know, like, and trust you yet. So that way, when they hear about you and they're in the process of wanting to move, they do a little search and they can get to know you. So that way, the yeses become a lot easier. Because when you're calling expires for sale by owners, door knocking, those are cold leads. Those are people who do
That's right.
not know you. And so you're going to get a lot of no's. That's just the reality of it. Very few people say yes, but that's why you have to have tough skin. But when you have an online presence, everybody has access to a phone, computer, some type of device
That's
where
right.
they can look you up. And if you don't have any type of online presence, it's that much harder for people to say yes to you. So that's when I was like, you know what? Let me find a platform that I know that I would be consistent on because you don't have to do everything. Don't be the jack of all trades. Start spitting one plate at a time, as they say. You know.
Okay.
So I said, you know what? I started on Facebook a little bit, but I liked Instagram because it was more fun.
Okay.
So
All right.
yeah, that's what I did. And so with Instagram, I was doing, regular posting here, posting there. It wasn't consistent. It was whenever I had a closing, it was whenever I did a showing, um, like those type of things. Or when
Okay.
I was showing like nice
Show the
houses.
house, show,
Yep.
right. I got you.
Yep. So it wasn't really consistent. So then I was like, you know what? Let me like try to be more intentional with my postings. So that way, I can again, I would treat my postings like a 9 to 5, like a schedule, And so what I did was and I said, you know what, let me start getting more into posting and figure out how many times I want to post each month, what I want to post and things like that. But not even that. No, I'm sorry. I just said, you know what, let me just start posting. Let me just start creating content. I will figure out my schedule later because I at least want to get into the habit,
The
form the
habit.
habit first, and then kind of mold it into a schedule that you like. That's the key thing for me back then. And so I started, I was posting probably like 5 or 6 times a week. It was a lot, but I was dedicated to it because I
Okay.
wasn't calling as much anymore. I wasn't door knocking as much anymore. So I needed to create this different type of lead generating um, thing here. So since I wasn't doing those things and I'm spending more time on social media, let me push it
It was
out.
like your prospecting time, like you stayed committed.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep, that's exactly what it was. I was doing a whole new type of prospecting thing here. So cause I originally, before I started being consistent, I had like maybe 300 or 400 followers. And when I started being consistent, it took time. It wasn't like it was okay, I went from 300 to 500 to 600 to 700. And like, no, I already knew in my mind that it was going to take some time. So
Okay.
I'm going to be in it for the long
So you
run.
had to be patient.
Yes, that's the key thing. I've had people message me when I hit my like 10,000 follower mark and like, oh my gosh, like how did you do it? And I told them, I said, you got to take time, you got to post and things like that. And one of my cousins, she called me. She's like, Michelle, I have been posting for like a month. Okay. And I still don't have any growth. I said, you've been posting for a month. Like, ignore the numbers right now. Work on the habit of posting
Okay. Good point.
consistently. Yeah, ignore the numbers in the beginning. Post consistently, and consistently could be anything. right? 'Cause people are like, well, how much is consistent? How many times should I be posting? However you feel comfortable. If you're only able to post twice a week, post twice a week. If you're able to post 6 times a week, God bless you, post 6 times a week.
Right.
But
That's
no
because it's
matter,
a lot of work. Yeah.
yes, it is a lot of work. But no matter what, be consistent. And you don't have to post consistently forever, right? But just stick to it. Let's just say 3, 4, 5, 6 months, half a year, like 6 months. And then it could get a little bit easier, right? And when I say that, it's because by that time, at least depending on how many times you've posted, how much content you've posted, by that time, you can start to what's it called, refurbish or
Repurpose.
repost. Yeah, repurpose. That's the word.
Yeah.
Repurpose some of your posts. So that way, if you're posting like 3 times a week, 1 or maybe 2 of your posts after 6 months of posting could now be some of your posts that you've done a couple months ago. So now
Okay.
you
Little
just got to figure,
tricky. Little
yep,
tips. Pro
yes,
tips.
yes. And this is why I say you work hard in the beginning and then you end up working smarter as time goes by. So that way, you're only posting 1 new post once a week and then you're just reposting the other ones because some people, people's memories these days are not that great.
Right.
So they forget a lot of things. And then not only that, but also not everybody sees all your posts, right? Yes, I have 25,000 followers, but when you look at my posts, it's really maybe a couple hundred or, well, a couple thousand, depending on if it's a post or a reel, that look at it. That's
Okay.
what, 1, 2, 3% of my followers. So even though you post now, most of your followers may not have seen it, but if you post it later, some of the followers that didn't see it may see it. You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
So
Yeah.
you try not to get discouraged at the same time. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of different things, a lot of different things.
Yeah. I mean, even the process, I know I go in and, I know you've done a lot of the funny ones. You
Hmm.
go and you mirror and make it your own, things that you've seen and stuff like that. But
Yep.
that's a lot of effort, just practicing the words or
Oh yeah.
putting the, where are you going to do this and what's your style. But was that hard to learn? Like, I mean, that process, right, is a process all by itself, to figure out like
Yes.
what's your jam, right?
Yep. So you got the process of figuring out how often you want to create content. You got the process of learning the social media platform, and in this case, Instagram, like learning how to like edit and stuff. And for me, I always try to keep it simple. Okay. Yes, they have so many great apps out there that you can be able to edit your videos. And if you want to do that, you can. But if you want to start simple, start within the Instagram platform, learn that platform first, post within there. So that way you're not having to post on another app and have to download and upload and all those type of stuff. Start simple. So
Okay.
for those who are trying to be consistent, start learning the app. So as I mentioned, process of posting consistently, the process of learning how to do the Instagram, learning the Instagram platform, and then also the process of figuring out what you want to post, right? What I do, I'll look on Instagram and see what other people are doing. And I know the biggest fear of what a lot of people think is like, okay, well, if I really like that reel that they did, but I'm afraid that if I do it, people are going to think that I'm copying them. Now, in reality, chances are you and that person that you're copying, if you will, and it's not really copying because you being inspired by them and then you putting your own twist. You're in a
Mhm.
different area, you're in a different location, you're in a different field, if you will, because sometimes you may be inspired by other people who are in a different um, field than you. They could be a chef and they're doing some type of dancing or
Right.
something like
Yeah.
that.
Different
You know, real estate.
industry. Yeah.
Yes, different industry. You're a real estate agent. You're not going to do chef things. You're going to do real estate things.
That's right.
But even if you find another real estate agent that is doing something you want to do, again, even if they're in the same city, you are a different person than they are. You have a
Mhm.
different audience than they have.
That's right.
So when you recreate it and you put your twist on it, it's going to be different regardless. So I've seen I've seen a lot of people where I've created some what's called some reels and stuff. Yeah, I've been inspired by other people, and there's some where I end up creating my own idea, and people get inspired
Amazing.
and they post. And I love seeing other people posting some of their things that they've seen me do. And I remember one time, this one lady, she repeated word for word Now that's something I don't recommend because I was talking about like maybe like the 5 steps of home buying or something like that.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
she repeated, and I knew that it was me word for word because I made a grammatical error when I was
Oh,
talking.
really?
Yes, I forgot what type of grammar. I think I like you wouldn't have realized it unless like because when
Yeah, you
I
do.
remember when I posted it and I was like, oh my God, I shouldn't have said it like that. And then I saw somebody else do it and I said, they took, that same video. So I wouldn't suggest doing that.
Okay.
And it was funny because I saw a comment that said, oh, so would Rose took this from that person. I'm like, no, because if you look at the
Nope.
date, I put
Other
the
way
person she
around.
posted, but most people don't get that. They don't know who posts when, honestly. And I think these days now it's even harder to kind of tell when people post it, which is again not a problem. But try not to do word for word, even if you just switch up one word or
Right.
something. But
Don't plagiarize completely.
yeah, it's not hard to switch it up and make it your own. It really isn't. So if you think that you're copying, you're not. You're being inspired by somebody else and putting a twist on it. So
Yeah. Yeah. I like that because, I call it R&D. It's either rip off and duplicate or research and develop, but it's kind of the same thing. You're like,
yes,
at the end of the day, there's this many topics in real estate and it's hard
yes.
for it to get this big. I mean, this
Yeah,
is,
you're
but
gonna talk about the same things.
yeah,
When we work with our clients, it's always the same process. You do do a consultation with them, whether they're buying, selling, figure out what their needs are, and then you work on if you're a buyer, finding a house, showing homes, going under contract, negotiating the terms, and getting to closing. Same thing with the
that's right.
seller.
Repeat.
Talk with them, get the listing, market the home, stage and what have you, go under contract, negotiate, closing. It's the same stuff. So we're going to eventually talk about the same thing. You
That's
know,
right.
in essence, we're almost like newscasters when it comes to posting, right? Newscasters, they can talk about the same thing in so many different ways.
That's right.
And that's what we do.
And they're like, I like this channel. I like this channel. And what a lot of people like is the funny stories in the middle.
Uh-huh.
Like I really want that $1 million mansion. Can you get it for me for $400,000?
Yes.
Or the therapy sessions that we have to have with people that we don't realize that becomes part of our job, or dealing with people that are a little bit twisted. They
Yep.
start out nice and then something happens. They're in a divorce, and all of a sudden you meet the other bipolar side of people, like the things that we see. So I feel like that funny content is funny also.
Yep. And it's relatable. And that's another thing, like part of my growth, because and other people's growth as well. But like when you create content that is relatable to people, that people can understand certain things, because we are in the real estate industry every day.
Yeah.
People buy houses once, what, every 7 years, 5 years or so.
Yep.
So there's a lot of things that essentially change. I mean, the concept is still the same, but there's still things that change, like the rules and regulations, the contracts and things like that. um, Even with the what's it called, the whole buyer agreement
Buyer
piece. Yeah,
representation.
buyer
Yeah.
representation. So these things change. So we have to stay updated. So whenever anybody is ready, and this is where it draws back to when they search for you and they find you online on social media or what have you, they are not only learning about you and your personality, they are learning that you're like the face of the real estate industry, and that they're understanding how the real estate industry works through you to make them want to call you, connect with you, and be like, hey, you know what? I'm ready to buy. I'm ready to sell. You have been so great. You have been funny and relatable and things like that. So it's making relatable content because that's what gets people to stick and want to follow you and stuff because it's funny.
Yeah. I mean, it's
It's not
true.
funny. It may not be funny in the moment, but it's funny when you look back.
Yeah. And people are going to search you. They're going to
Yes.
search you. So how do you get leads then? So you're on social media, you're building your platform. I remember when I was watching you, and like you said, it was like hundreds. And then I feel like, I mean, I'm not going to be, exactly right, but I remember saying, oh my gosh, because we would have accountability calls, which are great, and I'm like,
Oh,
hey, Michelle, like you're at 800. Then I feel like then all of a sudden you were like 2,400, 2,700. And then it's like, oh my gosh, it feels like it was a week. And then you were like 10,000. So I feel like, was it that there was a compound effect that was happening? And
so yeah, there were some compound effects, and what I mean by that, like some weeks or even months, it was kind of like plateaued, and then other times it was like, okay, we're going up, right? And then other times it would just be like this.
Okay.
right? Or even like a little bit. So it was slowly, overall, it was growing, not exponentially, but it was growing,
Growing.
right? And so with that, hold on, I think I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. And,
Oh, yes, with the growth. Yes, because I do remember when I hit I still remember when I hit my 1,000 followers. I was like, because me,
like a
my goal,
thing.
yeah, my goal was like, I want 1,000 followers. I am good. Like that's it. And then when I hit it, I was like, oh my goodness. Okay, well, maybe let's try for 10,000. So when I started, it was like beginning of January. I remember it was around 300, and then by the end of the year, I had hit like 9,000. I had hit like
Wow.
9,000. So it wasn't until the following year where I hit the 10. I remember it was Valentine's Day. I hit 10,000.
Okay.
The
That's
following
what
year.
that's what I was going to ask you. So year one, it was like 300, then you made it to 1,000. So you hit your goal. Is that what you said? And
Yes.
then year two, with the
So, okay.
consistency and this and that.
Yes. So let me do the high level. So year one around 300, year one of being consistent and intentional with social media. Let me emphasize that because I had always had a social media account, but I was
Okay.
never intentional with it. So when I finally started to pay more attention, it was around January. I remember I had 300. Then fast forward to like summertime was when I gained like 400 or 500 followers. So I know
Hmm.
like it was around summertime I hit 1,000. And then I created a couple of videos where some of my videos went viral. And when I
Okay.
say quote unquote viral, I don't mean like it hit 1 million views and all that kind of stuff. When I say viral, I mean that if my average views on my reels were like 200 views,
Hmm.
then the next reel that I make, the views was like 5,000. That's a video that goes viral because it's a
Right. It's a
higher
lot.
amount than the average that you usually are used to.
Okay.
So yes,
So
so I had
compare it to yourself, not to the million
yes,
person
yes,
that's probably got 100+ thousand followers. Like stay within, promote, you like be happy with your video getting a
yep,
hundred, 500 times. Okay.
exactly. And sidebar, I still have yet to have a video that went to 1 million.
Okay.
So, I
Well,
mean, I've had one that came close. I think it was like 970,000.
really?
Yes. Yeah, 970. I thought it was gonna hit
Wow.
the million mark, but it didn't. But it was stayed viral for a very long time. It was pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't
But
know that.
yeah, yeah, that was the I think it was like what is it called? Oh God, Spice Girls, tell me what you want, what you
Tell me
really,
what you
really
want, what you
want.
really,
And
really want.
yes, that one. And I think, it'd show like, oh, what does a buyer want? They want like a 5 bedroom home, like big kitchen, big backyard, all this kind of stuff for like $200,000.
Right.
Right. Which not realistic.
Right. Not in
Yeah.
most areas anymore, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh no, that was one of my viral. That was the second one, second most. The number one was oh God, what is that? What is his name? Kid Rock. I want a brand new house.
Okay.
I want to be a rock star. I want to
Oh,
be a
I
rock
want
star.
to be a rock star. Yes.
Yeah. Forget I use no lyrics, but like that again, that's what does a buyer want? I want to all the bells and
All
whistles
the
for like
things.
200,000 for like two hundred
Yeah.
thousand
I
dollars.
want an MTV crib for two hundred
Yes,
thousand
yes,
dollars
a
right?
bathroom I can play baseball in. Like,
Right.
yes, that one. That's the one that hit like 900,000, 970 views. So
Nice.
that was pretty cool. And again, that wasn't like a year, that was like a year or two later when I was already in. So it wasn't that same year.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, by summertime it was around 1,000 views, and then by the end of the year is when it started increasing pretty quickly to like 9,000. And then by February 14th, I hit that 10,000
Right
follow.
on Valentine's.
Yeah, I remember it so vividly. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then it went from 10 to 20 within that same year. So I gained like 10,000 followers in a
It
couple
really
months.
started kind of going up
Yes.
once you hit, here, and then it really started to
Hmm.
plateau up. Yeah. So
Yeah.
just really quickly, and then I want to make sure that I know the viewers are like, okay, that's really great. Did it give you leads? But right now, can you share what is your Instagram handle so that people can make sure that they follow you?
Yes, it's at Sold with Rose. Sold
At
with
sold with,
Rose. Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry, not at. I don't know why I sound old when
Well,
I say that. Sold with Rose. Sold with
yeah.
Rose.
Yeah, that's like ad is like YouTube. So Instagram,
Yes, Soul with Rose.
Sold with
Soul
Rose.
with Rose.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
Yes.
So then how has it impacted your sales? Are you getting business from it? Is it just not just, but is it the complement of social proof?
Mhm.
Can you share, that's a lot of effort to be going through and that's your prospecting. So how has that benefited your business?
Yes, it has benefit. Now, in the beginning, it did take some time um, because I'm still trying to figure out how consistent I wanted to post. Plus, people are starting to get to know me, so they weren't ready to jump on the wagon yet. Now, the ones who were already following me, and it was mostly like my friends and things like that, friends and other realtors. They were kind of like my beginning leads, so they would be the ones that refer me to their friends and be like, "Hey,
Oh,
Michelle,
okay.
I've been following you. These are like my real OGs, like the ones that was with me from 300, follower mark."
Okay.
So they were the ones that had reached out to me first, in terms of like, "Hey, I have a friend," or "Hey, I'm ready to move." When it came time to be where it came from, just like Instagram followers, it
Okay.
wasn't until the end of the year of my first year, like the second half of the year, like late summer, fall, early fall, where I had gotten a lead and they were like, "Oh my gosh, I've been following you for so long and I'm finally ready to like buy. Your videos are hilarious, all this type of stuff. When can we do?"
Okay.
So I'm like, "Oh, this is like an easy yes." So all of the work that I've been doing with posting, people are watching. A little side note, just because you think that only 300 people saw your video, or even like 20 people liked your video, doesn't mean that that's a small amount of people that have seen it. um, People that you don't know, I feel like there's more people that don't know you that see your videos, not only don't know you but don't even follow you, that see
Uh,
your videos more than the ones that do follow you. And I think that's just how the algorithm works, not that your people who are following you are not watching you, but I think there's a bigger more people that don't follow you, that similar to your videos, Kim, where you have a number of followers, a good amount of followers, but the amount of views, the amount of video views,
right.
it's always more than the ones that are following you. So
Mhm.
hopefully that makes sense. Um, but yeah, so I started getting my first lead that it was a buyer, and then it started becoming consistent because I ended up having to create like a system where if anybody wanted to schedule time with me, I created a Calendly link for them to schedule without me having to like call and follow up and stuff. Like they can schedule on their time on my calendar. So I gained like an ad, like an about an extra 3 to 4 million within that first year,
Okay. And gross
right?
revenue.
Yes, in revenue, and additional on top of my referrals, on top of my sphere of influence and all that kind of stuff. So strictly social media. So who wouldn't want an extra 3 to 4 million?
I mean,
I'll take that. And if you're
I'll
working on
take it
EXP, you can clear your commission to 100%. If you what's it called? When you
when you
cap.
cap.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. But I love seeing when people still message me and they're like ready to buy, or they have somebody that they're referring me to, and this is like a complete stranger
Mhm.
referring me to somebody else. So it's pretty cool. So
Yeah, you're like
I
a
average,
celebrity.
yeah, a little celebrity.
I
But I
mean,
average about, because I have a setup where I can get their information, or they give me their information, they can join my newsletter, and they can get like a buyer or a seller booklet
okay.
information about that, so that I can gather information. So on average, in terms of leads, I get about like 3 or 4 um, a month on
Okay, that's
average.
good.
Yes, which is pretty good. And because I have it connected to like my Flowdesk, I have all these type of connections and systems in place. But I love seeing the numbers of how many times people are opting in, how many people are messaging me and reaching out to me to want to buy and sell.
I love it.
So,
So one of the things that it's important is, and I remember you saying this before, and it reminded me, like you get agents that follow you as well.
oh yes, I get the referrals from them
You
too.
get the
Yes.
referrals, and then the localized people there was a little bit of a lag on that. and then they both became pretty consistent, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, yes,
Yep.
yes, yes. So the following year is when I started getting more referrals from agents. And of course, they're following you too. They are relating to the same messes that you are posting,
Right.
you know,
Yes.
and, they understand the game, the real estate game as well. So I've had people from, I made a reel about that actually. People from Florida, from New York, Texas, California, Jamaica,
Okay.
my family's from. So I had some dealings over there too. Like it's just so cool. It's
From
just
all over the, like,
yeah, yeah.
the Western hemisphere, is really, so, and to your point, like in your link tree, you have, whether you use links or link tree or whatever,
Yes.
you have some funnels in there so people can go. Is that right? You can get your
Yep.
guides, you
Yes.
can set an appointment. So you have some call
Yes.
to actions. And then in your profile, I assume that you must have like where you sell so that people can see.
Yes. So I have my website. I have my link tree has my website. If you want to get a buyer a booklet, a seller booklet, you want to join my newsletter, you want to set an appointment with me. Um, and those like the basic things.
Yep.
So if they still want to
Good.
do more research and stuff, like I go ahead and then when you're ready, I'm here.
Perfect. So what would you like, so people can find you on your Instagram. So
Yes.
that's Sold with Rose.
Yes.
And, is there anything else that you would like to share, with our listeners about, your journey into real estate, the decision to
Mhm.
go into Instagram, the just anything, that you think would be helpful as people grow their business and such like
Yep.
that.
Yeah. The important thing is, to be consistent with whatever you're doing, and following up, consistent in posting on social media. And even again, even if you are posting once a week, that's 52 posts in a year. That's still a good amount,
Mhm.
and it's really all about quality. No, I don't want to quality, yes, but I don't want you to be so hung up on the word quality where you're like, oh my God, I got to make this perfect. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be perfect. It's a lot of times that I've spent hours and even days on making a post and I hadn't gotten that many views. Sometimes the post that you make, even the less amount of effort in, you get the most amount of views, right? And traction. But the key thing is being consistent with posting on social media and following up. Fortune is in the follow up because not all the time everybody's always going to be ready that same day, right? Sometimes it can take months. And just to be patient, all right? Because again, as I mentioned, sometimes you can post and you're just going to get an average amount of 300 people viewing your reels or things like that. Um, but just because it's that same amount doesn't mean people aren't watching. Because
Yeah.
if you really think about it, when you're looking at videos and reels on Instagram, you're not liking every post, right? You're scrolling and you may like it, you may laugh, but you may keep going. So just kind of think like that. But patient, be consistent, and be follow up. So
Good. Yeah, follow up, follow up. Of course, I talk about that a lot, right? The fortune is in
yes,
the follow-ups, and make sure that you
yes,
follow up. So that's something that we've talked about a lot.
exactly.
So good, good. Well, I am so glad that you're here again. Michelle is in Northern Virginia and
Yes.
in Washington, D.C. and in Maryland. So if you have some referrals, for her, if you want to follow up with her, those Instagram is a great way to reach you. And so
Yes.
I want to thank you for coming out here today and being on my $1 Million Agent Blueprint podcast. Yay. I'm so excited to kick this off with a rock star like yourself. And I hope that everybody else will join us again.